You're listening to the Plain Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carlos Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello, and welcome to episode number 268 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me, as always, in the PTUK studios this week, it is my co-host, the awesome Matt Smith.
Wow, what do you want?
Nothing, you've had a hard week, so I thought I'd give you a big intro.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that information, but no, thank you very much. You are a scholar and a gent, as always.
So, Matt, how's this week been coaching across the mean streets of the UK?
The mean streets of the UK. I actually left the county this week, which is slightly...
You didn't go to Nev's side of the country?
No.
Oh,
Okay. I don't know. Was I that far away from you?
God,
Nev?
I hope
I'm
not.
trying to think. I don't think
I
I
would
was
have had
that
your
far
wheels
away
off and
from
everything.
you. No, well, not where Nev lives. It's a very nice part of the world. Thank you very much. No, I had the really... I went to Harry Potter World this week.
Anyway, moving on. Another one of those boring films. Anyway,
I don't know.
So you went there. Anywhere? Did you go anywhere decent? This week?
Harry Potter World. It was incredible.
Yeah,
Oh my
fantastic.
goodness me, boys and girls. Seriously, if you ever get the chance to come to London, it's in the Watford area. You desperately need
There's
to go.
a voice
Shut
keeps
up.
on calling me.
They've
road.
done a new. Is it the Gringotts Bank? And they've done a new sort of like one of the sound stages has been taken up by this. Anyway, the artwork and stuff that's all in there. How they make the marble and stuff, because it's about how they made the film, which is why I find it so fascinating, obviously, because there's lots of things. But they've done like I can only describe it as a 3D holographic projection that is so real I genuinely thought a dragon was flying at me. It's generally one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
What, better than our green screen?
Very much better. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It was in high def for a start.
All right.
But
On the
there
note
we
of
are.
the green screen,
Yeah.
Matt, where is this week's picture from and who's it from?
Right, yes, so this week's picture is from the American hangar in Duxford, in honour of the fact that on Sunday we're all off to Duxford. And the picture that is behind me, he says, if he presses this button here, he can do that. There we are. The picture that is behind us was very kindly taken by Owen when we were there a few weeks back. So, yeah, absolutely. Armando, you were saying, actually, it doesn't seem to matter where you go in that hangar. It is not possible to take a bad picture in that hangar.
Yeah, I think you could be the worst photographer in the world and stand anywhere on that catwalk up there, and you get an amazing picture that's worthy
Absolutely.
of any.
Yeah. Any green
background.
screen, certainly, yes.
Paul Trick has actually said in the chat room that he dropped the wife and kids off at the Harry Potter World recently. Then he carried on down to the Royal Air Force Museum at Hendon instead.
Of course he did.
Well
yes.
done, Paul. Well done. Anyway, joining us this week, as
Carlos,
always,
sometimes you do have to be a little bit tolerant of other people's enjoyments.
joining us this
Honestly.
week. Oh, shush. Joining us this week, as always,
We're
he's
3 minutes in and we're already bickering like a married
He's
couple. It's
the
brilliant,
man
isn't it?
who puts the X in XLR. It's Neville Bounds.
Good heavens, that was
Here I am. Yes.
well done. I'm very impressed.
What an intro.
Yeah.
What an intro that was.
Absolutely. Are you on steroids?
Bit of information for you. The Harry Potter place that you went to.
Oh, yes.
I used to visit there in about 1982 because it was the Rolls-Royce factory at Leavesden Airport back in the day. I used to deliver video gear and stuff there. But,
Look at this. Suddenly, look, he's pricked up a bit. Suddenly there's a vague...
The word of aviation
Yeah.
is like,
Yes.
hey,
Yeah.
fantastic.
dear.
but there we go. So
Yeah.
but no, it's been a good week here. Very busy again. Lots of work stuff going on. Slightly bold today because I ordered my new car. So that's
What?
fine. That's going to be financially embarrassing for me later on.
Right, okay.
But, yes.
Does
But, no, all good. And of course, looking forward to this coming weekend, which we'll talk about later on.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, absolutely.
Does Mrs. Nev know about the purchase?
No, they might just
Okay.
just go with that.
Did you tell her you're buying a Skoda?
I said I was going to pop out to buy some flowers.
Okay.
Right, okay, and she believed you after all this time. I'm slightly impressed. Very well done. Yes.
So, moving on to our fourth host on the show before Nev loses everything.
Yeah,
Moving on to
absolutely.
the fourth host of the show. He's the man who puts the V in VFR. It's Armando.
Seriously, have you taken something? What's
good.
going on?
This is new. I'm going to start wondering each week how you're going to introduce each one of us.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
beginning to
carry
wonder.
on.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Well, hey everybody. Yeah, happy to be here once again. Happy to make another week.
As are we. In fact, actually, we've got a very special video that you've sorted out for us. That is our military segment this week. Which, Carlos, you saying you were watching it? You were
For those of you guys and girls watching in the world of YouTube, we have got a incredible military segment this week brought to us by Armando, and it's a video, and it's all to do with the guys at NOAA or NOAA. NOAA, that's it, yeah. And the P3, and these guys, Matt, these guys fly into the heart of hurricanes,
right?
Deliberately.
Okay.
Your idea of
actual hell.
Heaven.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, one of my friends who is genuinely a storm chaser, he's off to the States at the end of the month, literally storm chasing, would absolutely kill, I dare say, to be, well, he's also a meteorologist, so to just get his hands on that data that I'm sure the said machine records would, I mean, he'd go nuts for it, I reckon.
So that's coming up later on the show. We've got loads of news to go through this week, and just to say hello to everyone who's joined us in the live YouTube chat room. It's the 10th of May, just coming up to 7:05 in the evening. Hello to Graham Haley. We've got Chris Griggs. Auntie Liz is in the chat room. Mash is in the chat room. Richard Adams is in the chat room. Paul Tricker. Hello to you, Paul. Who else we've got? Neil Lamworn. Hello to you, Neil. We have got Lara Megan Carry-On in the
Never
chat
heard
room.
of him.
And we've also got John Jester. Hello to you, John Jester. We've got James Can Draw as well. Is in the chat room this week. I hope I haven't missed anyone else. There's a few names, loads of names in the chat room this week.
Owen's just joined us as well.
And hello to you, Owen. Hi. Thanks for the picture, Owen. Well done.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. And Andy Wilson has just popped in the chat room as well. Hello
Brace
to you,
yourselves,
Andy.
everyone. It's about to be it's about to get very rough.
So before we start the show with the news, we have got some housework to do, as it is the time of the month where we say thanks to our Patreon. So, Nev, over to you.
Yes, it's time for the dirty music. That means it's our thanks to the Patreon donors, which this month are Adam Spink, Andrew Wilson, Captain Jeff, Eric Graves, Evan Shue, Graham Haley, Jacob Darlington Brown, Jeff Ward, Jonathan Warner, Jordan Rose, Liz Piper, Masha, Matt Caton, Matt Donnemeyer, Matthew Bunting Frame, Myla, Owen, Neil Lamworn, Nicholas Hewitt, Nico, Philip Labe, Ray Williams, Ruben Wells, Ryan Harper, Stuart Backer, Stephanie Plummer, Steve Andress, Stuart Black, and Jenny Parkinson. Thank you one and all for your fantastic contributions, because without you we could not be doing this show. So thanks very much once again.
Yes, if you want to find out how you can donate to the show, take yourselves over to the website, www.plaintalkinguk.com. There's a donate button on there. You can donate through PayPal or Patreon. It all helps to fund the show, because we have got lots of projects in the kind of the oven for this year, with various air shows coming up this year, including Riyadh later on in July, and we've also got Dubai at the end of the year, and we've got some other air shows, Biggin Hill coming up as well later on in the year, which we'll be going to, which will be fun. Plus some other bits and pieces in between that we'll be covering for your viewing pleasure this year. So thanks to everyone who's donated. So we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you are ready, Matt.
I am, yes. Yeah.
Nev?
Yeah.
Yes, surprisingly.
Armando.
Ready to go.
Let's do it. So, kicking off this week's first news story on the abcnews.go.com website. And this one is regarding the Russian aircraft that crashed early this week, and a transcript of the communications between air traffic controllers and the pilots of a Russian airliner that made a deadly crash landing at Moscow airport has appeared in the Russian media. The transcript shows the pilot Denis Yevodokimov, declaring an emergency and requesting to turn back, but does not indicate he considered the situation aboard to be critical before making the landing that went disastrously awry, leaving the passenger jet engulfed in flames. It adds to the picture of the disaster that killed 41 people on Sunday, as investigators are reportedly increasingly focused on pilot error as the primary cause of the crash. Russia's aviation authority confirmed Wednesday the transcript, which was published by the Russian channel REN TV, is authentic. Aeroflot, the air jet itself, the Sukhoi Superjet 100, took off with 78 people on board for the northern city of Murmansk, but less than 30 minutes later ran into difficulty. In the transcript, the pilot issues a distress call to controllers at the Sheremetyevo airport, telling them the aircraft had been struck by lightning and lost radio communication. The pilot declared a pan, requesting return, and lost radio contact, and the plane is burning, he says, in lightning. The pilot told controllers using an emergency signal. Despite using the word burning, it does not appear the plane was on fire yet, and the pilot's other communication suggested neither he nor the controllers believed the plane was in imminent danger. The pan signal is used to, as we all know, to indicate an urgent situation on board, but one which does not pose an immediate threat to life or the aircraft. Communications were perhaps hampered because the two were speaking over an emergency system that only allowed short bursts of messages, according to Russian media reports. Asked by the controllers what the emergency on board was, the pilot said that he'd lost radio and the plane's automatic flight controls, but asked if the plane would require help on landing. The pilot told the controller no, and seemed to say that he would be able to land as normal. So the two remained in contact with the ground controller giving directions, and the pilot said he would make a landing using the plane's instrument landing system, or ILS, not a visual landing. Instead of touching down smoothly, though, the aircraft slammed into the ground too hard, buckling its landing gear and causing the fuselage to bounce up off the tarmac before slamming down again, bursting its fuel tanks and setting the aircraft on fire. Russian investigators have publicly said that they are considering various theories of the accident, including mistakes by the pilots and ground teams, bad weather, and or technical malfunction. But on Tuesday, the well-sourced newspaper Kommersant reported investigators' primary theory is that the pilots made a series of mistakes. According to the newspaper, which cited sources close to the investigation, investigators believe the pilot's first mistake was entering the bad weather. After that, the investigators reportedly alleged the pilots hurriedly sought to land immediately instead of burning off fuel. As a result, the aircraft hit the runway with full fuel tanks and overweight, causing the bounce. Finally, they accused the pilot of mishandling that, making the plane bounce again. Now, the story goes on a little bit, but we also said the video has been on, well, all the social media sites plus the news sites. There's probably 3 or 4 different videos, various camera angles, plus one that shows the someone filming inside the aircraft whilst it was on fire outside, which was quite a distressing video to see, I will say.
Yeah.
But we were chatting between ourselves during the week on this, and we kind of had a few ideas running around, but I think in the end, guys, I think we all sort of agreed that it was probably down to pilot error. What do you reckon, Armando?
Well, yeah, so there's a couple questions that I had with this particular incident. The initial reports were it got struck by lightning, and then there's some of the passenger reports that say it got struck by lightning. So he was having a radio problem, yet he still chose to use the ILS. Now, of course, if he's flying in a storm, probably it was impractical to try to make a visual approach back in. And so were the radios working? Were they working well enough to do an ILS? But then my personal question is if he had enough time to brief that up, and maybe not brief that up, but to plan an ILS, well, why did they not either dump fuel or burn fuel before coming in? Which I think is a good, I don't know, probably a good suspect cause for that pretty serious bounce that the aircraft took. So if you're trying to land an airliner well over its max landing weight, where you know you're going to cause some damage already, but that may have contributed to that bounce, and then sort of an inappropriate recovery from that bounce may have led to that undercarriage collapsing. But then there was another part on this. The passengers, this is what John was telling me beforehand, that some of the videos that surfaced from this were people taking their time. They were going out of the aircraft with their luggage while the back end of the airplane is burning.
Yeah.
And
Really?
yeah, right. And in this case, it was a tragic outcome because most of the casualties were in the back of the airplane, where you can see from the pictures that it was burning. Yet people in the front were getting their luggage out of the overhead bins.
I mean, it was an out and out fireball, wasn't it? I mean, there's no two ways about it. The back of the airplane, because of the ignition of the rupturing fuel line or fuel tank, we're not really sure, but it was essentially a massive sort of fireball. I mean, it's just what disturbs me about all of this. I mean, so many things are just. I mean, this is awful.
There was one guy carrying 2 carry-ons.
But this is what's getting me. So it's pretty obvious that the back of the plane is in serious trouble, and people are still worrying about their suitcases. What is wrong with people?
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a concern in this, and we continue to see it happen over and over, where people are evacuating an airplane and they're stopping to get their luggage out of it.
I mean, Nev, what? I mean, I'm a bit lost for words, to be honest with you. I mean, do you think something like this is you get a serious scenario like this? Do you think this will help maybe make people focus their minds about leaving their damn luggage behind in an incident like this? I mean, is some of it because actually there have been a few instances where airplanes have ended up on the ground, everybody's got off safely, it's all been fine. Do you think it's almost that don't think it's going to happen to us type scenario?
It might be. This is 2019, though, isn't it? We've done all this way back in 1985. You might remember the British Air Tours 737-200 incident at Manchester on a rejected takeoff. And there was a tragic loss of life because people were not able to get out of the aircraft. Now, that was down to many factors, including seat pitch and all sorts of things. But I would have thought by now that we would have learned to, if there is an evacuation, you get yourself and your children off the plane. That's all that matters. Yeah. Everything else is replaceable. And the trouble is, I think that with these sort of situations, let's be honest, these are extremely rare events. Yeah. And we all don't expect it to happen to us. I think the flight crew have got some questions to answer about the speed at which they landed the aircraft at and the way they landed it. But that's a whole another story as part of the investigation. But definitely people trying to pick up luggage will have hampered the evacuation, no question about it.
I mean, as I say, this is not an isolated. All right, this particular incident, obviously, with the tragic end, is a very unusual event. But people, in the event of having to evacuate an aeroplane, taking their luggage with them is not an isolated incident. I mean, how do we get this message through to the
only way
Joe
you're going to
public?
stop it, the only way you stop it is to stop hand luggage inside the cabin.
Yeah.
So I think the only thing that I'm, this is kind of on the other side of the argument, is people that are in the middle either have just suffered a traumatic event or are in the middle or in the course of a traumatic event. This is something where when you think about vehicle crashes, when you think about airplane crashes that have happened and they find people wandering in the woods, like zombies. I guess I will say that, not having ever been through a plane crash, you sort of revert, despite what you may have seen in the pre-flight safety brief, you sort of revert to what you know how to do and what you may have done a dozen times before. So in the middle of an aircraft crash and the back end is on fire, it is possible that your mind may be so traumatized that your body's sort of shutting down and all logic is going out the window, and you're just thinking, I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to do what I always do, which is get up, grab my bag and go out one of the doors. Oh, wait, there's a slide instead of a stairway. Okay, I'll slide down the slide. So I don't know. This is a great, and I may look into this for next week and see what the psychology is behind a traumatic event like this. But I don't think it's entirely negligence, and obviously it's negligent, but you know what I'm saying?
I mean, I'm just sort of, I guess where I'm thinking is like, but you'd sort of think almost that the survival instinct would kick in over all else. We do tend to have when you do watch certain programs and things that are out in the UK, especially they do programs about survival and all that kind of thing. You sort of almost assume that the getting away from the Bernie Planey thing would be the first thing that you wanted to do.
I do slightly agree with Armando here in that most people in their lives have not been through big traumatic situations. I can only think of 2 occasions where it's happened to me, either in a car crash or in fact a situation that happened at home with one of our animals just a few weeks ago. And I found myself doing things which were entirely abnormal, and had I not had the big adrenaline rush and all the rest of it, I would have acted differently, I think. And it's interesting to note how people react in these situations, and there's no question in my mind that people react differently. Don't forget, none of them have been trained for all this at all, but the flight crew have been trained for hours and days and weeks about how to evacuate an aircraft. The average passenger has not, and therefore when there's a big adrenaline rush, when there's an abnormal situation going on, you don't really know how people are going to react, and it is quite surprising how people do. So I think it'll be interesting. Maybe Armando can have that bit of research. Actually, it'll be interesting to see
I may try to reach out
what the story is there.
I completely agree. I do. I guess I just always assume that in that scenario, my instinct would be to drop and run. Do you know what I mean? To get out. To just get out by whatever means necessary. I'd like to think the last thing that would ever cross my mind would be my tablet or the 3 pairs of pants.
I was going to say, a lot of people might say, "Oh, I don't want to leave my camera and my DSLR in there and my laptop," but hey, that's what insurance is for.
Well, yeah, exactly. But as I suppose as Armando says,
Neil has a great example in the chat room. So he says he came off his motorcycle once and he bit through his lip and still went back to the office to drop his bag off covered in blood. Wow. Weird when he thinks back on it.
Yeah. Again, actually, Masha is saying in the chat room here, survival instinct in humans is pretty bad. Some people just freeze completely and not even move, which is very true.
I think we'll sum up this story of what Richard Adams has said in the chat room, and agreed by Owen, actually. And he says that cattle prods should be a necessary requirement for cabin crew.
I'm not sure that would help with the bag scenario, though, which is what that's the most sort of shocking thing about this story.
Shocking. I like how you done that one.
The last thing that I'll add is I was fortunate enough to go through American Airlines emergency egress training 10, 15 years ago, something like that, in Dallas. And the commands from the cabin crew are designed to be loud and simple. So when you're talking about once the emergency lights come on, you're just sort of yelling at the top of your lungs, and all of the cabin crew is yelling the exact same thing, going, "Release your seatbelts, come this way. Release your seatbelts, come this way. You stop at the bottom and help people off," or something like that. And maybe they can just add into the emergency egress training, release your seatbelts, leave your bags, come this way. But then you start getting into
it's lots of information for people to take in. A couple more points in the chat room, if I may. John Jester is saying this is a generation that people cross the fence to take a picture next to the bars with a big cat on the other side and are then surprised when the cat grabs them, which is another good point. Liz says, or fall into the Grand Canyon trying to get the perfect selfie.
Very true, Liz.
It's just, this I dare say, sadly, this is a story that we will cover again at some point.
Yes, I'm sure we will.
But obviously, our condolences go to everyone that is if you know someone or are involved in this awful tragedy. I mean, fortunately, these things are very rare. But it's just please, guys, just leave the
Leave
damn luggage behind.
So moving on to the next story, bit more of an upbeat story. Well, I used the word beat in a punchy sort of fashion, but anyway, carry on.
Right, okay. Wasn't sure where you were going with that. The EuroWeeklyNews.com is the website, and the headline is "Plain Silly Ryanair aircraft diverted due to unruly customer on Malaga flight." So Ryanair, the airline leader in passenger transport numbers by flight, in Malaga, reported an incident on a flight involving a passenger travelling to Dusseldorf from Malaga yesterday, which was Monday, just gone. As reported by the company, the flight had to be diverted towards the airport of Santander due to the disruptive behaviour of the man during the flight. No further details were provided by the airline regarding the event. The plane landed normally and the police arrested the alleged suspects before the flight took off again for Dusseldorf. At no time will we tolerate inappropriate or conflicting behaviour. The safety and comfort of our passengers and crew are top priority. This matter is now in the hands of local police. The state agency for the air safety have forwarded that involvement in threatening the safety of passengers and crew can cost up to €5,000 in fines. The number of problem passengers at Spanish airports was 441 in 2016 and 538 in 2017. Last year alone, the AESA, that's the Spain's air safety agency, had fined 326 people for a total amount of €221,325. By nationality, the United Kingdom has the highest number of sanctioned passengers. There's a shock. 196, followed by Spain with 53, Germany with 19, Ireland with 15, France with 11, Poland with 9, Belgium and Romania with just 3 between them, the Netherlands, Sweden and Switzerland with 2, and Finland, Greece, Norway and Russia with only 1. The agency is collaborating with the authorities of other countries and participates in the working group of disruptive passengers of European Aviation Safety Agency to identify and develop new strategies that can minimise the frequency of these occurrences. I still genuinely say that, I think I've mentioned it before, haven't I, where in the UK here, certainly in Suffolk, we have something called a pub watch ban, and here in the UK, or certainly, as I say, in Suffolk, if there is an incident that involves not necessarily your own pub, but it's like a banned from one, banned from all situation. And I think the only way you really will get a handle on this, bearing in mind you need a passport obviously to be able to do that. I think if you've done something wrong, I would argue that you sort of almost forfeit your right, your human rights in some respects, to privacy, and that those details should be shared with the other agency so that when your passport becomes flagged. If you then try and, I think that's the only way you're going to stop these idiots from disrupting other people.
Armando doesn't get anything like this in the US, you see, because it's all tickety-boo in the US.
Well, no, it's because if you do anything wrong, they'll shoot you in the US. That's the trouble. Yeah.
We do have the ability for aircrew to be armed over here. So
yes, absolutely. The air marshal scheme. Yeah.
You can arm pilots too.
Can you? That's a frightening thought. Yes.
One thing you don't need on a BA flight, hey, Nev?
Oh, no. Well, glad you mentioned that, because we go over to the express.co.uk website.
Oh, goody.
Where we get, as you know, all of our aviation information. And there's a bit of video here as well. It says, shocking moment, BA plane rocked by severe turbulence, 14 passengers hospitalised. A British Airways flight was hit by severe turbulence. The BA flight from London to Florida resulted in 14 passengers being taken to hospital after turbulence rocked the cabin. Shocking scenes were captured in a viral video of the incident. Well, this aircraft was battered by extreme turbulence, it says, and the episode was caught on camera in an alarming viral video. According to a passenger on board, the plane dropped suddenly without warning during the frightening incident. The footage from the transatlantic flight showed belongings strewn all over the aisle of the plane after being hurled about from the force of the turbulence. Pillows, magazines, handbags and suitcases can be seen scattered up and down the floor. Panicked passengers appeared to be looking around in alarm as flyer Ollie Richmond filmed the aircraft. Were they alarmed by the fact that he was filming?
Possibly, yes.
But the video also shows an air vent which seems to have come loose after the turbulence struck. Well, Richmond wrote on social media where he shared the clip, crazy scenes on the BA 2166 London Gatwick to Tampa today. Plane dropped suddenly without warning. Loads of people hitting the ceiling. Could I make a suggestion? If you're sitting down, could you put your seatbelt on? And therefore, this will not happen. If you're standing up, then fair enough. But if you're sitting down, put your seatbelt on. It says it was something like out of a film. Lots of people sent to hospital. Well done, staff, for managing the situation well. A fellow passenger on the flight can be heard saying in the footage, "I've never seen someone come out of their seats like that." Indicating that they were not wearing their seatbelt. The airline said in a statement, "Safety is always our number one priority, and our cabin crew did everything they could to look after our customers after experiencing unexpected severe turbulence." They asked paramedics to meet the aircraft, and some customers were examined by medical staff as a precaution. Turbulence is graded on a scale of severity: light, moderate, severe, and extreme. Extreme is rare, but still not dangerous, although the plane will subsequently be examined by a maintenance member of staff. A pilot has previously revealed to express.co.uk that turbulence should, in fact, never concern flyers. In all honesty, passengers should never worry about turbulence, he said. The aircraft is designed to take the stress and strain of turbulence. For example, it's like designing a car with good enough suspension to drive over a rough surface with potholes. And so the story goes on. But as we always say, ladies and gentlemen, do keep your seatbelt on if you're in your seat, because it will save you from injury.
Indeed. Nev, actually, Lee Hall has a very good point here, which I think you, of all people, will appreciate. He says the most frightening thing about that video is the fact that the camera was in portrait rather than landscape. But
actually, the Express have run one of their little surveys on this story.
Oh, no.
And I just seen here that they've put this survey where you click on yes or no. The question being, have you ever experienced a bad turbulence on a flight? 60% said yes, 40% said no.
Right, okay. Yes, I don't know what to say.
I have, only once, but only
Okay.
the once. Only the one time.
I mean, I've experienced turbulence. I mean, nothing so violent that
but you'd have your seatbelt on, so that would be okay.
yeah, well, it literally never comes off when I'm at
There we go.
But that's because I'm
Well done.
a wuss, indeed. But there we are, all part of the fun.
So moving on to the next story, Armando, and yeah, this is good news for people who want to go to Las Vegas.
It is good news. I feel like this is one week we do an airline that's suffering, and then the next week we do an airline that's expanding its network. So this one is from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. States that travelers this fall will again have the option to fly directly between Las Vegas and Paris. Level, International Airlines Group long-haul, low-cost carrier, will start nonstop service on October 30th, offering 2 flights weekly. Flights went on sale Tuesday and start as low as $99 one way. In September, Level will bring a third Airbus A330-200 aircraft onto its fleet, allowing the new direct route to Las Vegas, flying out of Paris Orly Airport. The aircraft are equipped with 293 economy and 21 premium economy seats. The Vincent Hodder, the Level CEO, says, "We're delighted to add Las Vegas to our Level network, offering nonstop flights to Paris. Level is a new concept that offers customers something unique and different, allowing them to access exciting destinations and providing them with control over the way they travel at every touch point. Customers will also be able to fly to other parts of Europe through connecting flights from Paris Orly Airport with our partner airline, Vueling." This marks the second time an airline has launched nonstop flight service between McCarran International Airport in Paris. XL Airways offered seasonal nonstop service running between 2010 and 2014. This one is exciting because it's scheduled and not seasonal or a charter, which XL was, said the Clark County Aviation Director. We're really excited to have that nonstop from Paris because we know we're going to have the demand from Paris. It used to take one or two stops to get here, so we're really looking forward to welcoming them. Let's see, checked luggage plus a free cabin bag, meals, seat selection, and latest movie releases will all be complimentary for customers flying in the premium cabin. Economy class travelers can choose their amenities selectively, purchasing them from a menu of choices. Flights will include onboard entertainment options and super high-speed internet connectivity, curious to what that means, with prices starting at $11.74, according to the airline. The Paris nonstop flight is the latest international nonstop between McCarran and other cities, as new direct flights to Israel, Amsterdam, and Mexico are slated to start in June, with service to Japan possible at a later date, pending the U.S. Department of Transportation approval. So there you go. And I had to actually look up Level Airlines and see where they flew, and it seems like they have a pretty expansive network just all over the world to Europe and South America and the U.S.
Is this an airline you've heard of before, Carlos?
Level, I think we covered those in the story last year, actually, Level. But I was quite surprised, actually, with the 330 they're using only having 21 premium economy seats. It's not many.
It's Las Vegas to Paris is a very cool thing, because I suppose you could argue from our point of view, would that be cheaper for us to go to Paris and then Paris on to Las Vegas, maybe? Do it as a sort of...
it might be cheap. What about for you, Armando? It might be cheap for you to go from yours to Las Vegas to Paris.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually looking at that, where it would be, because I have Southwest Airlines here in this area, so I could fly from Raleigh-Durham to Las Vegas for maybe $129 and then jump on a Level flight over to Paris. So and probably make the whole trip for under $500 round trip.
There we go.
Crazy, really, isn't it?
Megan's sitting there now, rubbing her hands together.
Silly amount of money, absolutely. She's not listening.
That is a long way west to go back to Paris. So I don't know. We'll see.
Well, but if it's cheaper, I mean,
I was a big fan of Norwegian. You know, it's every time I hear a negative story or that they're struggling, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit, because both Megan and I flew Norwegian a couple of times, and we were real big fans of it.
Yeah, this is it. Do you think the transatlantic model will ever be successful, though? I mean, this is
the low-cost transatlantic model.
Yeah, the low-cost transatlantic sort of. I mean, do you think there's no two ways about it. There is definitely a market for it.
Oh yeah.
None of the airlines seem to be able to. I mean, as you say, you had Premier that obviously went under, and that was that was literally what they did, didn't they? They used to do. Was it Gatwick to? Was it
Primera? Primera, yeah.
Primera, Gatwick to New York, wasn't it?
New York, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Nev, I mean, what do you think the answer is here? I mean, because it would be great to be able to... I mean, you think what Ryanair, which I use as an example, I mean, obviously EasyJet as well, you think what they've done to flying in general...
The short
I mean, many would argue perhaps that they are directly responsible for ruining air travel as we know it. But, it has, as I've said before, it has made it, affordable to the likes of me. I mean, if it wasn't for people like Ryanair and EasyJet, I'd have probably been on one plane my entire life. It's
yes.
Do you think they can ever make it work?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because both Ryanair and EasyJet run sectors within Europe which are, generally speaking, sub 5 hours in length, and that's okay for the most part, and it's what you get. On the longer sector stuff, though, all the airlines usually say the only part of the cabin they make money in is the business class and first class sections of the aircraft. So running inexpensive seats to and from, across the pond from UK to the North Atlantic, or Northern Europe to the North Atlantic, is still a difficult model. I think Freddie Laker got very close to it.
Yeah.
Virgin certainly have had moments in the early days. But doing these sectors now, it's very, very competitive, and it's difficult to. And we can also think of other airlines as well. I think there's one or two airlines that have done some business class only sectors to and from the US, which have failed. It's a very difficult model, and you've got to, you have to fill every single aircraft. And of course, the ticket price has to be sensible, but it's still going to be profitable for the airlines to operate it.
Yeah.
Very true.
This is very true, yes.
So the next story is on the time.com website. And we probably all saw this as well in the news. It's been a bit of a funny week, really, this week for aviation. But the headline, airline offers $2,500 to passengers on plane that skidded into Florida River. So the operator of a chartered jet that ran into a river at a Florida military base is offering $2,500 to each passenger as a goodwill gesture. Miami Air International made the offer to the 136 passengers on Monday in an open letter from the airline's CEO expressing regret for what had happened. None of the passengers nor the 7 crew members had serious injuries from the flight which departed Guantanamo Bay, Cuba on Friday and skidded into the St. Johns River hours later after landing at Naval Air Station Jacksonville. The airline says that passengers' luggage, which was still on the aircraft in the cargo hold of the aircraft, which was partially submerged in the river, is still there. But the airliner says once federal investigators give the green light, the airline workers will retrieve the bags and clean them. Oh, that's very kind of them. And notify all their owners. Now, I did see a story earlier this week as well, after this one came online, where a company had recovered the aircraft onto a floating barge, and they were then removing the aircraft from its sort of resting place where it rested. Yeah, but $2,500. No one was injured. It skidded off the end of the runway.
Where did this happen?
This was Armando, probably the best place.
It was Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, so the USA, yeah?
Yeah.
$2,500 will not be enough.
Really?
because everybody will be suing for as much money as they possibly can. So
this is going to be an interesting one because I'm not sure that they can sue. This was a chartered flight for the government.
Yeah.
From Guantanamo Bay to Jacksonville. So most of the passengers, and I don't, not seeing a passenger list, but I would assume that most of the passengers were either government employees or families of government employees. And so I'm not entirely sure that they can actually sue the airline when it's a government contracted flight.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
Well,
that is an interesting take. Yeah. Wow.
And I had to look up Miami Air, and they have 5
Did have
737-800s, and they've been around since 1990, flying 727s.
Right.
Wow.
They do contract carriage for Fortune 500 companies, sports teams, incentive groups, major cruise lines, entertainers, political candidates. So seems to be how they make their money.
And if we talk about airline liveries quickly, that I think when I looked at the picture of their on their aircraft, they must have one of the most boring liveries I think of any airline.
Oh, I don't know. I think United's new livery will give them a bit of a run for their money. Let's be honest. But anyway, on to the next story. Smartertravel.com is the website, and the headline is: "This is the worst airline for lost luggage." For the 7-year period of 2012 through to 2018, airlines lost or damaged an average of 3 checked bags per every 1,000 air passengers, according to Department of Transport data. A new report from Luggage Hero, based on the DOT data, found that some of the airlines do a worse job than average. However, with mishandled or lost luggage rates that are double the average. Oh wow, that's not good. Delta fared best with only 1.55 checked bags mishandled per 1,000 passengers, and the small carrier Envoy Air, owned by American Airlines, was dubbed the worst with 6.76 mishandled bags per 1,000 passengers, which is more than 4 times the lost luggage Delta saw. Here's how other big carriers ranked for damaged or lost luggage. 4 small lines fared well. Frontier, Spirit, Hawaiian and JetBlue were clustered closely just behind Delta at around about 2 bags mishandled per 1,000 passengers. United and Alaska clustered at around 3 pieces of lost luggage per 1,000 passengers. Southwest and American are the bottom of the big lines at 3.5 to 4.5 bags per 1,000 people. The regional lines that feed bigger lines at major hubs, ExpressJet, SkyWest and Envoy, all clustered at the very bottom of the performance numbers, mishandling 6 or more bags per 1,000 passengers. Now, in defence of these smaller carriers, do you think some of this is perhaps because they are doing the short hops and therefore they're perhaps getting lost in transit from that aircraft, say, to the American airliner that it's feeding? I mean, do you think it's more because that luggage is being interfered with more, therefore it's got more chance of going missing?
Jen Niffer just says, she's in the chat room. Hello to you, Jen. Says at her airport, the same people handle the baggage for the regionals as the main lines.
Right, okay.
So it makes you wonder.
No, that's true.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the root cause to this would be. I mean, really, on the mainline carriers, there's only a few airplanes that would have the baggage containerized. I think most of the short haul stuff, even on mainline, is just bags in the compartment being put there individually. So I'm not entirely sure. It's an
interesting graph, though, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes where they park the regional airlines, it is a bit of a haul from there. When I worked at Dulles Airport, for anybody that remembers the old Dulles Airport.
You're not saying it right. It's Dull.
Dull Airport. Hey, it was top of the line in 1965.
Okay, my apologies. I take it all back.
Independence Air, or not Independence, it became Independence, but I worked for Atlantic Coast Airlines, and we were like 3 terminals over from mainland United. And at the time, you had a couple high-speed tugs, and that was the job to get, because if you had bags that were making a quick turn, the guy with the high-speed tug was allowed to push the speed limit and go just well across the airport at max speed for that Harlan tug.
Now, Nev, I'm pretty sure you'll have worked out what question I'm about to ask you. Have you had luggage? I mean, you do more flying than the rest of us. Have you lost luggage?
Only once. I've never actually had it lost, just mishandled or mislaid.
Right.
So it's arrived a couple of days later. But if you're on a short sector into Europe somewhere, it's pretty inconvenient because you're going to be, by the time it catches up with you, you've already moved on somewhere else.
Or it's time to come home again. Yes, absolutely.
But I did, I think it was Iberia once, lost my luggage on a sector from Heathrow to Madrid. But it was no problem for them because they gave me some spare clothes. Well, their idea of spare clothes was a very fetching, thin top, which wouldn't really fit, and some shorts, which was slightly awkward. I can tell you, wearing those in the hotel bar.
Did it have HMP on the back?
No.
See, do you know, Nev? I can't see you in shorts. I've got to be honest. I'm sure you have fabulous legs. I'm not going to take that away from you.
No one's ever said that. No.
Okay. It's just you don't strike me as a short man, so it's,
Oh, Nev. But I had quite go on with this. Next story, Nev, is one for you, and it's an incredibly environmental story.
It is. It's on the news18.com website, and it says that Qantas has embarked on a Herculean mission to cut 100 million plastic items, which contribute to non-biodegradable waste generated from planes each year. To pave the way for more eco-friendly flights, Qantas has conducted a trial of the first ever zero garbage flight. At present, the total waste generated by the airlines is equivalent to 80 full Boeing 747 jumbos. Naturally, the need of the hour is to come up with ways of reducing landfill waste. The amount of waste generated each day is staggering, and steps are accordingly being taken by Qantas to eliminate waste and consequently improve their environmental footprint. On Wednesday of this week, passengers on the flight from Sydney to Adelaide were in for a pleasant surprise. They were served food in packaging made entirely from biodegradable materials like crop starch, sugarcane, etc. The formula is simple. Once used, these biodegradable items will be converted to compost and will be then used as manure in gardens around the country. Qantas also has a policy in place for any non-biodegradable waste like plastic bottles. Any such plastic waste will be recycled. But more importantly, the airline will not be charging their customers for this switch to biodegradable items.
Yeah, they are.
From Yes, I'm sure they will. A spokesperson from Qantas said that this is an investment they're prepared to make, and that customers will not be charged extra as this will be beneficial in the long run. In fact, a lot of people praised Qantas on social media, while some applauded their efforts. Some stated that others must also follow the example. According to the Sydney Morning Herald, the passengers had not been notified prior to boarding the flight. As Andre Davis, CEO of Qantas, said, this marks a significant day for aviation, and it can only be hoped that other airlines will follow suit. It's quite a big thing, actually, isn't it? If you think about waste and rubbish and garbage, what have you, at the end of a flight, especially on a long sector, it's quite significant, isn't it?
Now, I may have mentioned this before, but several years ago, Mum obviously does lots of catering and things. She still does a bit now, bless her. And I remember sort of, if you go back, sort of say 5 or 6 years, we used to do something here in the UK called the Cambridge Folk Festival. And we used to do, you had to do sort of slightly off-the-wall things. If you couldn't just be a burger van, essentially, at an event like that, because it was actually a county council, so it was actually run by Cambridge City Council, for that. So you had to do slightly off-the-wall foods, and we did like bangers and mash. We used to do a pie and mash with parsley liquor and bangers and mash and stuff like that. And one of the stipulations that Cambridge Council insisted on were these very containers that you're talking about in this story with Qantas. And I have to say, there is nothing wrong with them at all. They are as strong, if not stronger, in my experience, certainly, than the polystyrene, ones that we're so used to. If you get like a tray of chips or whatever at on the market and stuff, I mean, and yet they're really good. They're quite hard. They really are good, and of course it's all stuff that will easily break down and just become part of the earth as and when. You've obviously, something has tickled you in the chat room, obviously.
Just reading what Armando's putting in the chat room.
Oh, is he? Oh, right. Okay.
I know what you're saying, Armando. I too have that same collection at home of aviation blankets and British Caledonian cutlery.
For the audio version of the podcast, anybody that's not watching the chat room, I just said, if you want to reduce the amount of waste that, from an airliner, you put my mother on an airplane because she'll take everything off. Since we still have a collection of Eastern Airlines, TWAs.
Right. Okay, very good, yes.
A bunch of blankets and maybe some other things that were supposed to stay on the airplane.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's good. I suppose a lot of it is those because it's only recently that the technology has existed to be able to produce these alternative containers, perhaps in defence of these airlines. I mean, if these sort of vegetable based products were available sort of 10 years ago, perhaps people would be more familiar with them than they are now.
Well, good on Qantas anyway.
Yeah,
well
absolutely.
Done.
Yeah,
well done. So moving on to the next story. Armando.
Yeah, this is from flightglobal.com. I apologize in advance if I offend anybody with my terrible Burmese or Bengali, but a Biman Bangladesh Airlines Bombardier Q400 turboprop overran the runway at Myanmar's Yangon International Airport while landing during heavy rain on the evening of 8 May, according to that airport. No casualties have been reported among the 30 passengers and 6 crew aboard the aircraft, which has serial number 4367, according to the airport and Bombardier. All passengers and crew immediately received proper treatment, transportation, and support, says the airport. There were no casualties thus far, and the situation is under control. The aircraft was operating Biman Flight 60 from Dhaka, Bangladesh to Yangon at the time of the incident. The Q400 skidded and overran the runway at 18:51 local time, during a landing attempt amidst heavy rain and poor visibility. A photograph released by the Myanmar Times shows the Q400 resting on its belly with substantial damage. The aircraft's fuselage near the tail appears almost ruptured. Montreal-based Bombardier cannot comment on the potential cause of the incident until the investigation is complete. Bombardier delivered the Q400, which has registration Sierra 2 Alpha Golf Quebec to an Egyptian carrier, Smart, in 2011. Smart still owns the Q400, though B-Man has leased it since 2015. The Q400 accumulated 6,500 hours of flight time, 9,300 cycles as of December 2018. I had to look up this airport. So this has single runway, 11,000 feet. And the Q400 is generally recognized as a short takeoff and landing aircraft. So yet more questions to be asked as to how you can run off the runway when it's 11,000 feet long. Unless it was just skidding off to the side or something.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a large factor of weather-related issues that possibly caused this event, Armando.
But that aircraft isn't called the Crash 8 for nothing, is it? You know,
I see what you did there, Nev.
Every time we talk about the Q400, there is not a lot of love for it in any of the chat rooms.
I think they're
What
blooming
is it,
noisy.
do you think?
So noisy.
What is it that we don't like about it? Do you think? I mean, why is it people don't like it?
I mean, it's popular here in the UK.
Undercarriage collapsing, for example, with SAS, got taken out of service at least twice. Dispatch reliability, not very nice aircraft, I don't think. But you know, I've only been on a couple, so I can't really comment too much on it. Yeah.
No NPE segments on them coming anytime soon.
Right. Okay, good.
Right. So the next story then is. Wow.
Horrendous.
This is horrendous. This is on the apnews.com website. And the headline...
I don't know if I want to put this
the pictures
picture up.
I know.
I'm not sure I want to.
The headline is chef, as in someone who cooks, stopped at Los Angeles airport with 40 frozen piranhas. So, in Los Angeles then, a famous South American chef says he was stopped as he brought 40 piranhas in a duffel bag through Los Angeles International Airport. Virgilio Martinez, chef owner of Central Restaurant in Peru, told the Los Angeles Times on Wednesday that he hoped to serve the predatory sharp-toothed fish during an LA food festival. Martinez was featured in the third season of the Netflix show Chef's Table. He says customs agents pulled him into the interrogation room last week when they found the cache of frozen vacuum-sealed piranhas. After 5 hours, the agents let Martinez through with the fish, and he used them that night on a salad. The newspaper says the following night he dried the piranha skins and served them inside the piranha's heads. My word. Okay. And, it's, I mean, we hear of strange items being found within people's hand luggage or in suitcases, but I don't think I've heard of frozen piranhas being found in someone's
Horrendous
suitcase.
is a word. Horrendous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Indeed, yes. On to the next story.
Got a bite off that story.
Yeah, I'm moving on quickly and pretending it never happened. Simpleflying.com is the website, and the headline is, "Soon you won't be able to fly on the Airbus A310." Air Transat is currently the last operator of the Airbus A310 in the Western world. However, this won't last for long, so there are a few remaining opportunities to experience this old plane. The Canadian airline will be phasing out the aircraft as it takes deliveries of the new Airbus A321LR through a deal with the leasing company AerCap. According to an article by the Boarding Area Network, the entire Air Transat A310 fleet will retire sometime next year as more of their new planes enter service. Other operators of the A310 passenger variant are airlines in Iran, Mahan Air, Iran Air, and Taban Air, and Yemen. For most of our readers, this means that Air Transat, as a Canadian airline is the most feasible option with its current fleet of 6. The A310 is still used as a military aircraft by armed forces all over the world, including Egypt, Mongolia, Spain and Thailand. During the development of the A300 program, airlines approached Airbus looking for a smaller aircraft. After extensive research, the studies and Airbus announced the A300B10, later renamed the A310. The twin-engine, twin-aisle, wide-body A310 was manufactured in the late 1970s and 80s. Production officially ceased in 2007. The model in use by Air Transat is an A310-300, which seats 250 passengers in a 2-class configuration.
So a bit of information, a bit of history on the A310. So this first flew on the 3rd of April 1982. That's a few years ago. And it was there's 255 of these built in total, and it was classed as a medium to long range twin aisle jet aircraft, manufactured by Airbus, as you know, and it was obviously the A310, which is smaller, a derivative of the A300, as Matt said. The origin of the A310 lies within design studies originally conducted for the early A300 program, and there's also some variants of the A310 which are the MRTT, multi-role tanker transport. They made some versions of these for the military, not to be confused with the A330 MRTT. So it's been around a few years, 37 years old. So yeah, it's been around a few. I don't think I've ever flown on a 310.
Nev, have you been on a 310?
I have, yes. Did a lot of flying on the A310 when I was flying with Swissair from London to Zurich mainly, and very spacious aircraft back in the day. This was in the sort of mid-1980s, about 86, something like that. Perhaps they're cramming more people in these days, but then in the economy section, it was really good actually. Very nice aircraft. A bit like a 767 in terms of size inside, with a twin aisle configuration. But yeah, very nice indeed.
That's right. I don't mind the 7.6. It's the 7.5, isn't it? I don't like.
Hey Nev, Pratt & Whitney JT9Ds on the 310s, Nev.
Yep. Could be a bit noisy back in the day, but obviously they've got hush kits and stuff like that on, I would imagine. But yes, quite a noisy event. But nonetheless, it was had quite a good range, I think, as well, and was great for the medium to longer haul operations as well as the short haul stuff.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame they're going. But moving on to the next story, which is something that hit the news this week. It's something we covered a bit in the past, isn't it, Nev, about this particular aircraft?
Yes. Well, I'm actually on the wrong story, so that's not very helpful at all, is it? So I was just about to talk about something entirely different, like the Lonely Planet thing.
Which is what I've got as well. So
is it? Okay.
I'm
okay. In the wrong order. That's my fault. Oh, carry on, Nev.
So what would you got me to do then? The Lonely Planet?
Yeah, go on. Go with the Lonely Planet.
Shall I do the A380?
No, definitely.
I'll do the A380 one.
Oh, okay. Then.
How about that? I'll do that. Well, this is interesting because on simpleflying.com, it says that the first Airbus A380s are now being scrapped, and the first two of them to enter service are being taken apart at an airport in France, in Lourdes, in fact. And the photo released this week shows MSN 003 and MSN 005 with gaping holes and no engines as the salvage team work to remove the valuable parts from the planes. The two very first A380s to go into service are being taken apart. They were manufacturer seal number 3 and 5. They've been mothballed in France since their leases came to an end and are now being dismantled. These were previously operated by Singapore Airlines, and they're well on their way to becoming nothing more than the sum of their parts, a new photo has revealed this week. If you're an av geek and a lover of the biggest plane in the world, I have to warn you, this post contains graphic images. And in fact, the very first A380 to enter service, MSN 003, was delivered to the launch customer Singapore Airlines on October the 15th, 2007, entering into service on October the 25th. The same year, the aircraft flew between Singapore and Sydney, registered as 9 Victor Sierra Kilo Alpha. Shortly after this, in January 2008, MSN 005 arrived with Singapore as well and was registered as 9 Victor Sierra Kilo Bravo. These were the very first A380s out of the factory, with the MSNs 1, 2 and 4 being Airbus test aircraft. Well, as we all know, the A380 didn't have the happy ending that everybody hoped for. Despite a lot of passenger and avgeek love for the aircraft, airlines just couldn't make it work. Airbus announced the scrappage of the project, and ironically on Valentine's Day this year, although they also have said that they'll continue to support it for as long as it flies. So upon completion of their leasing period, both MSN 003 and 005 were repainted in all white and flown to Lourdes in southern France to be stored. Despite their leasing company attempting to find new customers for the aircraft, nobody wanted the gentle giant, and so they were earmarked for scrapping. So it's a big shame, isn't it? So I think the problem is with this aircraft, we've said it before, haven't we, that it was perhaps just coming at the wrong time in the aviation, what's the word? The time that it was the right time for it to come. And I think the problem is that with aviation, you just never know because of the time difference between designing an aircraft and actually launching it. It can be years, obviously.
Because weirdly, if you go back, say, if it had been released, say, 5 years earlier, I mean, this could be a very different story. There could be the same love for the A380 as there is for the 74. Do you know what I mean? It could be that sort of thing, isn't it? It's just the launch timing is just completely wrong, isn't it? At a time where people are concerned about the bottom lines more than ever, cost of fuel in general is going through the roof and stuff like that. A beautiful aircraft is essentially being mothballed because it's just not economic anymore.
But when you think, 12 years, I think it is, this has been since it, came into service. When you think there's passenger aircraft in the skies now that are still flying, carrying passengers that are double, if not more, older than that, and they're still flying.
No TriStar LTL11s, I noticed.
There is still one flying.
What with actual paying
not with
passengers?
No, it's used for other purposes, but there is still one.
Cargo, probably.
And there was talk actually that the ones that are at Bruntingthorpe may be being shipped out to the US soon, but I think Jonathan Warner might know more about that.
Okay, yes. Watch this space.
Watch this space. The last story then, Armando, and it's a boozy one. So it's.
Well, yeah, I feel honored and slightly like a substitute teacher being able to, to read a British Airways story. But it is from Lonely Planet, as we stated. It is revealed recently that some food and drink items taste different when you're on a plane. So it's timely that British Airways is now including a gin that has been specifically developed to be enjoyed at altitude on its in-flight menu. According to Professor Charles Spence, one of the world's leading flavor scientists, low air pressure and lack of humidity suppress our taste receptors and alter our sense of smell at 30,000 feet. Granted, I think the cabin's probably only at 6,000 feet, but our perception of sweet and salt are somewhat muted, whereas our ability to identify spices and bitter flavors are seemingly left unchanged. Surprisingly, our ears play a part in how we perceive taste also. Background noise, such as the hum of the engines, can render many people unable to detect salty or sugary flavors effectively.
Really?
So, yeah, we'll see. I'll save my comments to the end.
Okay.
So, Edinburgh-based gin distillers Pickering's created a 10 botanical blend for British Airways. Various recipes were trialed at different altitudes. God, this was what I was going to comment. I would love to be in the trial group for this.
Yeah, too right.
Yeah. And the gin was created where the tasting notes shift the higher you fly.
Wow. Yes, please.
Central to the flavor profile is the addition of lemon myrtle, which imparts natural sweetness alongside the citrus flavor. This adds a fresh taste without the bitter edge, balancing the sweet floral notes of heather and rose to deliver an and enhanced sweetness and depth of flavor.
Am I the only one that misses the days where you could just drink something and say, yes, really nice, where you haven't got to compare it to a bunch of flowers? No, just me. Okay.
Well, I don't know. I think the point of this article is that you are high, right? High in the air.
High in the air, yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
So, to banish so-called airplane taste blindness, we have carefully designed a botanical flavor profile that enhances what you lack when you're soaring in the sky, says Pickering's head distiller and co-founder, Matt Gamel. As a distiller, developing gin on the ground and then trialing it in the sky at different altitudes was a fascinating process. We trialed multiple iterations of the recipe in the air until we were confident that it would taste as good in the sky as it did on the ground. The airline is introducing limited edition food, which I think we talked about, drinks and gifts that customers can enjoy as part of its centenary year celebrations, and will be available on all BA economy flights under 4 hours for the remainder of the year. Passengers will also be able to buy the gin as a part of a limited edition triple miniature gift pack sold on board all long-haul and non-EU flights through the British Airlines High Life shop.
Does anyone actually like... I can't stand gin myself.
What?
Oh, I love gin.
I've only just... Mrs. Nev introduced me to gin only a few months ago. And I must say, I've really got the taste for it. My only regret is I didn't try it years ago.
Well, you see, now, I'm not a big drinker, as everybody knows.
I'm not a big drink.
Okay, yes, all right. I may have accidentally stumbled across my own point there, but anyway, that's I'm not really a big drinker, and yet, it was my mum who ironically introduced me to Mother's Ruin, and it is there's a place called the Gin Palace here in Norwich. And it's above a pub in Norwich, and it is probably the first time I tried one of these multi-blends, sort of like, you know, where it was in a big glass with all the bells and whistles and stuff in it, and that really did change my life when it came to things. I mean, I am very partial to a gin now, it has to be said. Carlos, you need to, you know, there are so many things. If I had the opportunity to reset you,
I just can't get my head around the smell.
I mean, you know, hating Harry Potter for a start is unforgivable. Your zero tolerance love, anti love for anything vaguely sport related. You know, I mean, if I ever had the opportunity to press a reset button and make you try again, you know, it'd just be marvelous. But no, I mean, it's just like, do you have a particularly favourite blend, Armando?
So before that, I'm just surprised because Nev, you can correct me, but isn't Norwich or Norfolk the center of English gin industry? Like I feel like there's the Norwich Gin Festival, which I tried to get to.
Oh, there was one, yeah. There was a big Norwich Gin Festival.
I think you may have got wrapped up in some kind of lying hype there, I suspect. I'm not aware of...
Because I was American.
London is very famous for gin. I'm not aware of... No, I'd be... I tell you, if somebody is able to correct me, I would be delighted, because if we are involved in that, because I love gin. I know there has been a gin festival, but I think that was more... you know.
So getting back to the aviation topic.
Oh, right. Oh, sorry.
Segue is aviation gin. I will say that aviation brand gin is an excellent gin.
Gemma
and
loves
if
that.
you're an Av geek,
Yeah, Gemma's got that.
Do we believe all this? Not. It's like this beer that was brewed that's supposed to taste better in the air. I mean, how much do we believe about how it changes things like your taste buds and that kind of thing? And you know, and one of the things it's saying in that story there about the gin is the fact that even the background noise disrupts how you taste stuff. I mean,
Captain, shut the engines off. I want my gin to taste better.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, come on, Nev. Is there any, you know, actual science attached to this?
well,
I'm sure there is, but I've not dealt with it at all, I have to say.
No, go on,
Nev,
Armando.
we can send Nev on assignment. Professor Charles Spence is an experimental psychologist at the University of Oxford. So.
Oh, that's true. That's not far away from you. You could give that a go.
Yeah, just down the road. I'll go and see him. Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Pop in. Yes.
So that was the commercial news
No, it
stories for
wasn't.
this
We've
week.
got one more story
But
to go. Yeah, so go on.
we have been sent in a very special story from one of our awesome listeners, Owen, today. And Matt, you've got that story. What's regarding an airline that one of your favourites?
Slightly different here. So it's a Ryanair story because that's why I'm reading it. And it's Flying in Ireland is the website. Rather oddly, this story is Ryanair roll out live flight monitoring, which when I was chatting to Owen about this earlier, I just found a bit odd because surely that's what Flight Radar is all about. But anyway, it says Ryanair announced the deployment of Global Beacon, a live flight monitoring platform that combines FlightAware's data processing capabilities and web interface with global flight tracking coverage from Aeron. The Aeron network tracks aircraft via their ADS-B, automatic dependent surveillance broadcast out antennas, which are mandated in many parts of the world, including throughout Europe. This enables most airlines and aircraft operators to take advantage of Global Beacon without requiring additional equipment. Aeron is partly owned by the Irish Aviation Authority. That's probably why Ryanair are involved, I'm guessing. All airlines operating in Europe are now required by EASA to track their aircraft at a frequency of one position every 15 minutes during normal operations. It is expected that by 2021 they will need to receive one position every minute if an aircraft is in distress. In the event of an incident, this will improve response efficiency by inherently confining the search and rescue radius to an area of just 11 kilometres. The new EASA requirements are based on the Global Aeronautical Distress and Safety System, the GADSS, which was created by ACAO, largely in response to the loss of flights AF447 and MH370. Global Beacon far outperforms the current 15-minute requirements, enabling Ryanair to meet future expectations for flight tracking, since it provides minute-by-minute position updates at all times. So that could be interesting, actually. So this is obviously. So is this like a potentially an industry-wide thing then, where, as I say, off the back of those two disasters where the planes disappeared, I assume it's not just Europe and things. I presume this is being rolled out across the world, is it?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the website here, globalbeacon.aero, and. It's quite an interesting read, actually. It says at least one position per minute under all operating conditions, 100% global coverage from the Aeron network of space-based ADS-B receivers, instant distress notifications as well. Yeah, I mean, it's FlightAware. There is the FlightAware website is actually quite an interesting website to look at. But I think most people these days have either Flight Radar 24 or Plane Finder on their phone. Yeah, the apps, tracking apps.
Well, it's just seems a bit odd that Ryanair would be sort of launching their own, if you see what I mean. But
well, it's handy to find out when they're going to be late.
Oh, now steady. Yes, there we go. Well, actually, going back to our previous story, you can always rely on our listeners to correct me wherever possible. Norwich is indeed relatively famous for one particular gin, and that is the St Giles gin, makers of fine gin. So I need to go and find that. They do a very nice raspberry, rhubarb and ginger looking one. I think that one might be one Mrs. Nev would enjoy.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes.
Okay, that's my task for perhaps before Sunday. We'll see how we get on.
Well, that's this week's show title. Anyone for a gin?
Anyone for a gin? Yes, absolutely.
So moving on then to a fantastic part of the show. So we're going to hand things over to Armando to introduce.
Thanks, Carlos. I really appreciate it because I'm going to file just having the ability to do this interview as one of the advantages that has come out of being part of the PTUK and podcasting family. So just yesterday, I got the chance to go down to Charlotte International Airport, where the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, otherwise known as NOAA, they're doing a 5-city tour just to raise awareness about the famous hurricane hunters. So they had both aircraft out there, or they had a NOAA aircraft as well as the U.S. Air Force Hurricane Hunter unit, which we'll save that for a little bit later. So this is the first of 2 interviews that I got. The second interview will be a little bit shorter with the Air Force guys. So this is the NOAA crew with their P3 or WP3D. The weather was perfect for talking about hurricane hunting because there was tornado warnings in the area, as seems to be frequent here in the Charlotte area this year. So the weather was terrible, and if you're watching the YouTube video, you'll see that we conducted this interview underneath the wing of the P3. And then additionally, there's a little bit of background noise. So if you're listening to the audio version, you'll notice some pauses in there and some sort of hard cuts where we were probably only 400 feet from the departure runway for Charlotte International Airport. So we sort of had to bring the conversation to a halt every 2 minutes or something like that to let an airplane tuck in its thrust reversers. So great interview, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
All right, guys, I'm here with Nate Kahn, who is a commander in the NOAA Corps, and he is a pilot?
I'm a pilot. I'm the aircraft commander.
Aircraft commander for this beautiful WP3D, which you're going to have to Google. All right, Nate, first of all, thanks for doing this.
Sure.
All right, so tell us a little bit about the NOAA Corps and the airplane and why it is that you guys are on.
So I'm going to let this guy take off real quick.
By the way, we are on the grounds of Charlotte Douglas International Airport. So, there we go.
So the NOAA Corps is one of the 7 uniformed services of the United States. It's the smallest of the uniformed services. So most people tend to think that we are officers that are on loan from the Navy or from other services to come do this mission. That's actually not true. When I left the Navy, I departed the Navy, and I am now active duty with the NOAA Corps. It's about 300 officers, and they operate NOAA's fleet of ships and aircraft.
Okay.
So my story is I started at the Naval Academy, graduated 2003, went to flight school, chose P3s. I flew P3s with the Navy for 12 years, and then this opportunity came up, and I elected to transfer to the NOAA Corps and continue my service career and continue flying P3s, but now people don't shoot at me.
Yeah.
I fly into hurricanes, but nobody shoots at me, so that's good.
So that's very unique, as we're always talking about different flying jobs. I feel like every month we discover a new job in aviation, and this is pretty cool.
So my path is not necessarily unique for us, but there's a different path within the NOAA Corps, and we actually take college graduates as ensigns they commission and come right into the NOAA Corps as the start of their career. So when that happens, if they come to aviation with us, we send them through a flight school via FSI. FSI is our preferred vendor. So we send them to flight safety down in Vero Beach, Florida. They learn their basic commercial license. I think it's a commercial instrument multi-engine is what they come to us with. And that if they have background, great, it's less time. If they don't, they'll go 0 to hero on that syllabus. And then they come fly our aircraft. And naturally, we don't send somebody who has 250 hours total into this airplane into a storm. They start off flying our fleet of Twin Otters. We have 4 Twin Otters that NOAA's other agencies use for similar style of mission. It's an airborne data collection platform. They use them for marine mammal surveys. They use them for some air chemistry missions, coastal mapping, stuff like that, where they fly a little slower and they get to spend a lot of time building multi-engine turbine time, and then they can fleet up into some of our other aircraft. We also fly a King Air. We have a high-altitude jet that does other surveillance work. So it's not something that you have to go be a 15-year veteran to get a job over here. Like, we take guys right out of school, we train them all the way up. So there is an opportunity for folks that are looking for employment with the NOAA Corps to come that route.
That's amazing. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never...
Yeah, we're real small. Like it's easy to miss us if you're not paying attention. Yeah. But once you see us and know what you're looking at, you'll find as you turn around at every airport, you'll see our colors and go, oh, I thought that King Air was flying for Wheels Up because we're very similar paint schemes. But in truth, it's one of our aircraft that is out doing work.
Well, so you started talking a little bit about the different missions. So specifically about the P3 and its mission. Okay.
So the mission that our P3 is most well known for is hurricane hunting. This aircraft, we take it right into the heart of the storm. When you hear about guys flying into eye walls to get data and do crazy stuff like that, that's what we're doing. Yeah. So we do that. Basically, it's kind of a twofold mission. We fly into hurricanes so that we can gather data on that specific storm to input to the forecasting models for that storm. so that we can make the forecast better and more accurate based on real-time data. Now, we also carry sensors and conduct experiments for the hurricane research. So those experiments are designed to improve the models as a whole. So when we go out, that data is used, for example, if you look at the data for the forecast of tracks over the last 10 years, there's a significant improvement in the 3 to 5 day forecasting windows. It used to be that we were pretty good out to about 3 days, which isn't really enough time to evacuate Miami. 5 days is enough time to evacuate Miami effectively, right? So we're working on getting out to 7 days being a very accurate forecast. So that's kind of that's a long-term goal for the hurricane research guys. But we're not really good at intensity forecasting. We're kind of all over the board as far as that goes as an agency. So we're trying to get better. And we carry a lot of equipment that is designed to help improve that. And we've started to see some improvements based on the tail Doppler radar that we carry.
Okay.
So our job is twofold to kind of sum up. One is to improve current forecasts based on the active models, and also to improve those models for future years and storms.
And is that pretty near real-time data? You guys beaming data back to a center?
Yeah, so some of the data comes up. We have satellite broadband on the airplane. Some of our data comes off real time to the forecasters. Some of our data is downloaded post-flight and inputted. Our mission times are based on getting our data into a model run right before it happens. So the models aren't continuously updated. Basically, the guys at the forecast center input data, they look at stuff, and then they push a button. I think it's a button, I'm not real sure. But they say go, and then the model runs and generates a new solution. And what we do is we time our missions so that the data we collect is inputted into the system before that next model run happens. That's the idea.
So
we're not a real-time forecasting platform. That's not what we do.
Okay. And that's a great segue. So your mission, what does your mission planning look like? Is there, so is the aircraft commander sort of in charge? Who do you work with to figure out where you're going to fly?
So typically we get sent, the one I look at is a graphical depiction, and it's usually based on a map. And the Hurricane Research Center, the Research Division or the National Hurricane Center will send that to us ahead of time. And then we'll take that map of basically it's usually a rough picture of where the storm is, what the geography looks like around it, islands and things like that. And they'll say, we want you to fly this pattern in and around the storm, depending on what the mission goals are for the science for that day. And we'll look at it and go, okay, we can do that most of the time, because they know we've been working together for so many years that they know what we can do. So they'll send us that, and then we'll sit down in a brief and talk about it, and we'll get an updated center position, because all of our work is based on the actual center of the storm. So we'll get an updated center position from the aircraft that was on station before, or we'll swag it if we're the first ones going in. We'll look at it on the map, on the satellite picture, and say, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And then we pick a track in alignment with what the researchers want for quadrants of the storm, and we'll go inbound on that track. And sometimes we're spot on, and sometimes we're not. But as long as we get into the eye of the storm, then we will find the new center point, which is based on a zero wind component. So when you go into the storm, the eye wall is where the heaviest winds are, but even inside there are still small strength winds swirling around inside. We fly to the exact zero wind point, and it amazes me how the meteorologist can tell me what heading to fly or track to fly to get to a zero wind point, and I'm looking at the wind gauge that we have up in the front, and it hits zero almost every time. I would think that 2-3 knots is pretty impressive as far as that goes. Our guys hit zero almost every pass.
From a piloting standpoint, what is that like, flying through the eye of a hurricane or through the wall into the eye?
Flying into the eye walls are bad. Bottom line for aviators, literally everything we do on this mission is completely counter to what every pilot is ever trained to do. Like, we fly away. Like, pilots are supposed to fly away from this mess, and we fly into it. But what we don't do that arbitrarily or randomly either. So, like, all this mess we've got going on around Charlotte today, I would not want to get up in the air and just fly into storms for grins, right? So we're very deliberate about where we pick to go in, and we do that on purpose, and there's a lot of background we don't have to get into about that. But as far as what it's like to fly, if you think about it, your fundamentals of IFR is you maintain altitude, airspeed, and heading, right? All the time. Well,
how do you do that in a hurricane?
The answer is you don't. So there are really two priorities that we do our very best to maintain. because they are the ones that are most important to us. And the first is attitude. We keep the wings level, or as level as possible, and we limit ourselves to, if we have to turn to change a track or adjust where the aircraft is going, we limit ourselves to 5 degrees angle of bank or less when we're in severe weather. So if you think about it, if you've ever tried to turn for 90 degrees at 5 degrees angle of bank, that's a long time. So it's really important for us to make sure that our track alignment is good when we start.
I can't even imagine that. And on top of that, you're going to have 130, 140 mile per hour winds pushing you one way or another. Right?
So typically, and that's why we fly a track, not a heading. So we're flying a track, and you're looking at anywhere from a 30 to 45 degree crab angle is pretty common.
That's amazing.
So we maintain track. That's very attitude and track are the two things that we do our very best to stick when we're coming in. But we don't chase altitude. Like we normally do a penetration at 10,000 or 8,000 feet, sometimes 7,000 radar, depending on what we're doing.
So
normally it's baro. Like normally we stay with a pressure altitude because we can set it, and the other aircraft that might be in the storm can set that. And regardless of what the storm does, then we know we've still got separation.
Okay.
But sometimes our science requires radar altitudes. That's neither here nor there. We still don't stick an altitude. If the storm pushes us down, we let it push us down. If it pushes us up, we let it push us up. And we'll make gradual corrections when we're in control fully of the airplane to make those adjustments. Because seriously, in moments when the storm decides it's going to toss us, I've been in situations where we caught an updraft and I was pushing down because the airplane is getting slow as the wind is shifting. And we've got max power set, we're still getting slow, so I'm pushing the nose down to try to regain airspeed. Airspeed's another one that we try to chase a lot. But I'm trying to regain airspeed, and I've got the yoke pushed down, and I can feel that the elevator isn't catching. Like there's no air catching in it yet. So the tendency is to want to continue pushing until it catches, and that's a bad place to be. So you kind of set something there, and you let the airplane fight, and eventually it catches and starts to move, and then you've got to recover from that and kind of balance the plane. So we don't chase altitudes. Once we're good and flying on our own again, we'll make a little correction and coordinate the power reduction and all that stuff. But we don't chase altitude. We set 210 knots as our target airspeed for penetrations. That gives us a significant buffer between stall on this aircraft, which in our normal flight configuration is probably down in the 150, 140 ballpark. And then overstress, which is if we get up over 300 knots and then we get a G load, we could really break the plane. So 210 is our target. And we start making adjustments in either the power setting or the controls if we exceed 220 or we go below 200. So those are call-outs for the guys in the flight station for how we're flying the plane kind of as a crew. CRM is one of our biggest things for the people actively flying the airplane.
So you guys still have an engineer, and your engineer is controlling power generally.
Yeah, right? we hand over power control to the engineer when we're in a storm, because basically the guy in the left seat is wrestling an alligator, like with the airplane. The guy in the right seat is doing all of the talking as far as coordinating that stuff, and he's cross-checking. Effectively, when you're that guy flying, your instrument scan becomes about this big, and it goes between 3 places, just back and forth, and that's your entire world. It's like when you start flying IFR for the first time, and you're like, your scan is so tiny that it's just like boom, 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 and that's it. Well, we go back to that. So the guy flying the plane is two-handed on the yoke, and he's wrestling with that alligator. The guy in the right seat is doing everything else that you have to do in flight. Thankfully, we don't have a lot of radio calls to make while we're in the middle of a hurricane.
Generally, nobody else flying in that airspace.
There ain't a whole lot of folks out there that want to talk to us. And then the engineer is actually watching a speed tape in front of him and looking at trends in the speed based on the airflow. And what he'll do is, as he sees speed start to taper up, he'll pull the power back and try to keep us there himself. So, as you can imagine, if you're flying an airplane and you're trying to maintain an altitude and an airspeed and an attitude by yourself, and somebody keeps messing with your power levers, it gets kind of weird. So in our case, we're typically focused on maintaining an attitude, and we let him adjust the power for the speed until he either reaches our max power setting or the flight idle, at which point he'll say that, and we'll adjust the attitude to try to adjust the speed.
So you brought up crew resource management, as we were walking through. It seemed like a pretty big crew, or at least a lot of stations back there. So what is the crew complement of this?
So the flight station is 2 pilots and a flight engineer, and when we go out on a mission, we carry 3 pilots and 2 flight engineers, and we do it's up to a 9-hour mission, so we rotate for crew safety and fatigue reasons. Behind them, there's an in-flight meteorologist who is like my right hand, and then there is a navigator who's like my the flight meteorologist is his right hand. So if the flight meteorologist is working only in the weather system, the navigator is keeping an eye on where that weather system is in the real world. Because while we would love to be going to Cuba more frequently, they still don't like it if we show up unannounced.
Yeah, absolutely. In a P3.
Yeah, exactly. In a P3 that looks a lot like an EP3.
Right.
So anyway, so behind them, we've got probably 5 or 6 different stations where radar operators or scientific researchers can sit. And the complement of that is anywhere from 3 to 7, depending on what we're doing. Get a little further back, there's our data system operator. He runs basically all the networking. Like this is one giant networked laboratory that flies. So he's got quite a challenging job to manage all of that stuff. And then come a little further back, there are 2 more science stations and then a station for an observer to sit back in the windows. So normally our crew complement is about 13, but we typically carry up to 17 or 20, depending on how many seats we have installed and the interest from like media and congressional reps and folks like that.
You'll take them up in a storm?
We will, yeah.
Oh, wow.
We take media all the time because we're a government agency, we're very small. Yeah. Part of what we do is awareness, So if you want to come see this, if like people can see us talking about this on the airplane, then it gets our message out. It kind of makes people aware of what we're doing. And with the congressional reps, well, they cut our checks,
money, right?
So they give us the money to do these things. And if they want to know what that money goes toward, we're more than happy to show them because we need to upkeep the aircraft. We need new replacement aircraft. We need all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and these P3s are probably getting a little long in the tooth now.
This particular girl was born in '75. She's 44.
Pretty young, actually, yeah.
And for an airplane. Yeah. And we just put new wings on her 2 years ago. Yeah. So we're expecting her to stay in service until, give or take, 2030, 2035, somewhere in that ballpark.
Is there a different maintenance program? I mean, you're putting the aircraft through some pretty stressful situations. Is there sort of an upgraded maintenance or a more
not really. Our maintenance cycles are based on exactly what NavAir put out for the Navy's P3s. We took their pubs and said, okay, this is a good program, we'll use this. Because we got the same stuff from Lockheed when we got these airplanes. We do inspect a little more frequently as far as some parts and components and for robustness, but interestingly enough, our flying is less stressful than the way the Navy normally flies their airplanes.
Really?
Because the stress in a storm is all in flight, and we keep our G loads fairly limited, like over 3.5, and we abort for an inspection. Yeah. So it's not like we're going out pulling 5 or 6 G on the airplane and pushing a lot of negative and torquing it around very much. But the counter to that is that we don't do a lot of cycles. Like this plane doesn't do 200 touch and goes a year. Right. It maybe does 75 or 80. Yeah. And what's really stressful on airplanes actually is the transition from ground to air and vice versa, the cycles. So this airplane has a lot of hours and it's been through a lot of crazy hours, but it actually has a very low cycle number, which the research indicates cycles are what actually damage the airplanes. Like those Southwest planes, the 737s that were coming apart in flight, and they were like, this airplane's young, we don't know why it's doing it. Well, Southwest, those airplanes make 3 to 5 hops a day with at full weights and transits and stuff. So there's a reason that they're breaking down. And it's usually a cycle count and not not like a life fatigue for what we're doing with the plane.
That's amazing. I wouldn't have thought that, but it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? So let me ask you this: what's your most memorable flight that you've had?
So I have 2 or 3. I'll give you. The first one was my first storm, and it was Hurricane Danny in 2015. And we were flying out of Barbados, and we got in the storm, and it was, at that point in time, it was a Category 1 hurricane. I look back on it and I think, that wasn't really that big. That storm wasn't that big of a deal, but it was my first one, so I was freaking out, man. And we went into it, and we were at 12,000 feet when we went in, which is a little higher than normal, but we did it because we weren't sure what was going on, and we were like, okay, we'll check it out. Freezing level was up at 15 or 16,000 feet, which is kind of key we want to be below that to avoid icing and lightning and grapple, stuff like that. So we went in at 12, and we hit grapple. And I was like, oh, that's weird and loud and awful, and I don't know what's happening, but I'm flying the airplane. But my buddy Scott over here, who was the aircraft commander, but he says I'm doing fine, and we have noise canceling headsets and Vox. So as the co-pilot, you're usually kind of whispering sweet nothings into the other pilot's ears to tell him that it's okay and that he's doing fine, right? Especially when you've got a new guy. So he's talking to me, keeping me calm and steady, and we go in and we break out into the eye wall, and he was like, "What?" And he calls our meteorologist. He says, "Hey Jack, was that grapple?" And Jack was like, "Oh yeah, that was grapple," which is really bad for the airplane. It's like really wet hail. He's like, "Okay, what do you want to do?" He's like, "We need to go down 2,000 feet." And he turns to me and says, "Nate, take us down to 10. Well, okay. So I descend to 10,000 feet in the eye of a hurricane. I'm like, meanwhile, Jack is also calling heading changes, or track changes, so that we can hunt the center. Yeah. So I've got the power at idle. I'm dropping it like it's hot, and I'm cranking around between 30-degree angle bank turns. Those turns can be like 45 degrees either side for track changes as he's trying to set it steady out where the wind is. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of challenging. Okay, whatever, no big deal. And we get down to 10,000, everything's fine. We go back out. I did 2 more penetrations of the storm, no big deal. What was memorable is I came back in later, and Scott and I were having a beer after the flight, and he's like, I've never had to do a descent in the eye like that. That was kind of crazy. And I was like, dude, that was my first trip through the storm. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you got a gold star. You had like a camp, right?
This is my first one. I don't know what I'm doing. So that one was memorable. The second was a pass through Matthew in 2016. And we came through the storm, and the radar was a mess. Like this huge, nasty red, like if this is my radar scope, a quarter of it was this red, nasty blob, and this was all eye wall. And our track was just a little off. Like we mistimed it a bit, and we got a little too close to that mess. And as we came into the eye wall, we got hammered. We were down 2,000 feet. We were up 1,500 feet. At one point in time, we were in an updraft, and like I was talking about speed bleeding off, that was a situation where I was laying on the elevator in the plane and wouldn't catch. And that happened multiple times in that 2 to 3 minutes of the eye wall penetration. And it was gross. The G spike was only about 2.9, so it wasn't an abort thing, but we came into that eye. And normally when we're, like I talked about CRM, normally we are chatty, like everybody's talking all the time. We broke out, and once you break out into the eye, it's like the lights come on a little bit, like as it gets bright again. And everybody knows you're through because the plane steadies out and it gets bright. So that moment happened, and it was dead silent on our ICS for about 10 seconds. And the pilots that are up front on Vox, like we could hear each other breathing, but that was it. And then about 10 seconds in, my buddy Chris was with me at that point, and he said, "You guys okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, all right, let's go." And it was just one of those moments where like, okay, we're all still alive, we're all still good, let's get back to work. And we hunted center, and ironically, the other side of the eye wall was open, so we got a little bumpy with some wind shear, because even when a storm's eye wall is not closed with clouds, there is still a wind field there. Okay. So you can go through clear air, but it's still very windy. Yeah. So we cruised out and took care of that one. That was the worst penetration of our season that year. And by the way, you can find a video of that on Facebook. If you go to the NOAA Hurricane Hunters Facebook page, I'm pretty sure it's labeled as like Matthew 2016 or something like that. And at the very start of the video, you can see somebody in the left seat, like a green flight glove, flying the plane. That's my hand.
That's your hand. That's your hand model.
Yeah, that's my hand. In a glove. No big deal. And then the third one that I'll tell you, because I don't know what your timeline looks like.
Oh, we're good. Yeah.
The third one is last year in Michael. I was not flying. I was the co-pilot to another senior aircraft commander, and I had done my rotation, my couple of penetrations. I was done. I hopped out. I was in the back taking a nap because we have a rack in the back of the airplane here for rest purposes, and it's got a seatbelt on it, so you're not going to get thrown around too much. And they were going in for the last pass of the storm, and literally we took a really heavy negative G, or it wasn't negative, but it was probably like a 0.25, enough to get you a little floaty. Yeah. So we're coming down, we're a little floaty, and I'm in the rack, and I was asleep, so I didn't brace myself at all when this started to happen, and I came floating up a little bit toward my head, and my knees floated up a bit, and then when the G loaded back up on the airplane and it came back down, it folded me over my seatbelt, and I cracked my head on the ceiling.
Oh no! I
actually had to look at the other flight engineer was sleeping down in the other rack, and I looked at him. I was like, "Hey man, am I bleeding?" And he's like, "No." I was like, "Okay, pretty sure I don't have a concussion, but I'll get checked out when I get home." So those are my top 3 moments in terms of what the worst storms I've flown into. Laying out in the Central Pacific last year, that was the storm to beat all storms as far as I'm concerned. because if we had a Cat 7, it would have been a Cat 7. Like we stopped counting at 5, but storms get bigger than that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So amazing! What an amazing mission! I've never been. I knew the Hurricane Hunters is very cool. So you kind of mentioned the Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I can imagine if people can go to NOAA, find some information. Or
yeah, so there's Google. If you Google NOAA, for example, if you were looking for the Commissioned Officer Corps, if you Google NOAA Commissioned Officer Corps, it will get you to a web page for that. If you go to just NOAA's homepage, there's a link system that will eventually filter you down there. The official website doesn't have as much of our media stuff because everybody on the airplane is taking videos with their iPhone. Seriously, Apple could probably do a Hurricane Hunter like shot on iPhone commercial because 90% of our 90% of our stuff is shot from folks' phones sitting in Windows. But yeah, most of that just gets through our PAO.
Okay.
Our public affairs guy goes right to Facebook. Maybe to Twitter. I don't know. I'm not a Twitter guy. I don't get it. But
Facebook. So it's on social media somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's definitely on social media somewhere. And I know our Facebook page has all of those videos available. So if you go to the NOAA Hurricane Hunters Facebook page, you can find all of that stuff.
Okay. And we always end with one question. As a pilot, if money was no object, if you could fly any airplane in the world, past or present, what would it be?
Can I have a counter question?
Sure.
Are we talking about like one flight just for grins, or do I get to fly this thing a lot?
One flight.
I am a child of the 80s, the F-14D.
Nice. That's going to go over well with the listeners.
Top Gun got me into the Navy. Top Gun kept me in the Navy, even though I flew P-3s.
That's awesome.
And I have been known to quote that movie at least once a day. I know it's not real. I get it, but I love it anyway.
I would expect no less from you guys. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yep.
Great. Thanks.
Oh, what a fantastic
That was
interview.
awesome,
Yeah,
Armando.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Massive, well done.
Yeah.
Round of applause, guys. Round of applause.
Yeah,
Seriously, great interview. Just a million thank yous to Nate, who was an excellent ambassador for NOAA. And I was just looking up there. If you just go to the Office of Marine and Aviation Operations at the NOAA website, you'll see some of their missions. Obviously, the hurricane hunting gets the biggest sort of starring role, but they also do mammal population studies, shoreline assessments, water resource node surveys, air chemistry, remote sensing, emergency response, and mapping with a fleet of Gulf Streams, Twin Otters, and P3s. So he was a excellent. I really enjoyed my time speaking with Nate, and they also gave us a tour through the aircraft. Very cool.
And what a location to do the interview, underneath the wing.
Yeah, and you could see the airliners landing right behind us. I mean, we were just just a couple hundred feet from the runway there at Charlotte. So very, very cool. And then next week we'll see the WC-130J, which are the Air Force Reserve Hurricane Hunters out of Keesler Air Force Base.
Fantastic. Really am looking forward to that. Right, ladies and gents, it is, I'm afraid, time to start wrapping up. Now, some of the more eagle-eared listeners will know, Nev, that there is a very special event that is taking place in a couple of days' time, being the 12th of May.
What's going on, Nev?
Well, we're off to Duxford, and we've been looking forward to this for
is that it?
some time. And we've got a lot of people coming along. Some people are flying in, some people are driving in, some people are coming by horse and cart. And it's going to be great. And the weather is looking very reasonable indeed.
It's almost looking like summer. Yes.
So the PTUK team will be there from about 10 o'clock onwards. And I think the idea is that we're going to try and meet up with folks around about 11, something like that, when they can arrive. And we've got some bulk booking, group booking for the tickets, which is Pip's organised, and also families are welcome
very
too.
much so. Yeah, absolutely.
That would be good. And as you'd expect, I should be bringing this item with me, the famous muff,
Nev's muff,
and the camera as well. So we'll be doing lots of interviews. and general stuff. So looking forward to doing that. And so looking forward to seeing everybody there. We've checked out the food. The menu looks good as well, with various catering things.
That obviously was sent to us by Captain Al. I expect nothing less, frankly. Yeah, indeed. Absolutely. He's already decided which of the many venues that are available at Duxford we're going to be eating our dinner at.
Yeah.
But it's going to be good. Can't wait, actually. It's going to be a great crowd by all accounts there. It's not too late if you are listening to this and it isn't past the 12th. You are more than welcome to join us. So you need to find yourself, you need to get yourself to the Imperial War Museum at Duxford. That's just outside Cambridge, just off the M11 on the outskirts of London. So if you'd like to come, as I say, we're aiming to enter the museum at 11 a.m. using a group booking ticket. You can still come after that. Obviously, do feel free, but basically we can only do the group booking thing once. We all have to arrive at once. One thing I would request, please, if you are wanting to take advantage of said group booking, could you please bring cash with you in order to be able to do that? Otherwise it's going to get very complicated if we've got to do it on a card. So if you could do that, it would be we would be eternally grateful. It is Sunday the 12th of May, and we're going to sort of enter the museum at 11, but as I say, myself and Nev will be there from 10 a.m. There'll be a few other people who'll be milling around there, so we can have a bit of a chat and a meet up before we enter the venue itself. But looking forward to seeing lots of very familiar faces and hopefully some new ones as well.
Yes, and I will be bringing with me a little bag with some P2K t-shirts, a little selection of t-shirts. So if anyone wants to grab a t-shirt, they will be available to purchase at a bargain price, aren't they, Matt?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, 15 quid, I think we said.
If you say so, yes.
Yes, 15 quid. Cheap as chips.
Anyway,
yes, so don't forget to contact the show via the website www.plaintalkinguk.com. You can click on the Contact Us tab if you want to send us a message. Send us some voice or video feedback as well. Matt can deal with that. He can run it through the system
format, really,
and make it look marvellous, and we can play that on the show, and hopefully you can send some of that to us, guys and girls. We'd love to hear from you. And that is
currently one of my favourite things in the Duxford chat that's going on at the moment here is actually from a chap by the name of Stuart that says, by the way, FYI, I'm Carl's boss and I got a government grant to employ him as he was such a danger in the community. This is the kind of calibre of meetup that you're going to be looking forward to at Duxford. So there we go, it's all part of the fun.
Thanks to Stuart, my boss.
Always a pleasure. Armando, we're going to miss you terribly, actually, because this is your spiritual home in lots of ways, isn't it? So it's going to be sad not to have you with us, buddy.
Yeah, certainly. I wish I could be there for the meetup, and I'll do my best to dial in via Skype or FaceTime or something like that. But Sunday is Mother's Day here in the United States, so
you have a reasonable excuse then. Okay, yeah.
Well, yeah, we can't leave without saying Happy Mother's Day to all those here in the U.S. and around the world.
Yeah, absolutely, and lots of very, 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 very lovely mums there are in the States too.
So I was going to say a big thanks to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. There's been quite a hefty discussion in the chat room, I will say, this evening. A lot of it revolving around food and drink.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
As always. So thanks to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room. And also don't forget a big thanks as well to everyone who downloads the show as an audio podcast each week via the usual praise.
Yeah, we're wrapping up. Carlos, what are you up to next week?
Monday, I'm driving across the country up towards, I think it's Captain Al kind of territory. Kind of
Welsh
way.
Wales?
Well, near enough.
That's a bit
It's
scary.
it's a 4-hour drive from here, so I shall be driving the lorry across the country Monday.
Oh dear. Nev, have you got anywhere exotic in your calendar for this week?
Don't think so. A bit of London activity later on in the week, but just to let you know that I had a very nice chat with Captain John Hutchinson.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Concorde on Monday of this week, and we're going to sort out a time and date for an interview and a proper
much looking forward to that.
piece for the show. So stay tuned for that.
Very much so. Yes, can't wait. Armando, where are you going? Anywhere nice this week?
No, not a whole lot going on. I think.
Okay, I'm already bored talking to you, and we haven't spoken to her yet. Is Megan doing anything exciting next week?
Well, it's Mother's Day.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very good. Yes. Yeah. So I just
Any flying plan for next week, Armando?
No, I've enjoyed my 60 days off since I left the UK, and it's probably about time to start buckling down and start studying for the flight instructor certificate, which is a goal for this summer. So.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. Look at that. This is what we like to hear. Big goals, big goals.
Matt, what are you doing next week?
Me? Well, I've got a very quiet week, actually. I'm mainly in the yard this week. Bit school run activity, obviously, morning and afternoon. But a lot of that is because I've got Friday off.
You got Friday off?
I have. I've got Friday off.
Why?
Because a very, very dear friend of mine, the lovely Kate Lavender, is marrying the legend that is Big James Mulhern. They're getting married on Friday, and I'm going to their wedding.
So what in the next Friday?
Yes, that's it. Next Friday. Yes, absolutely.
And so when the thing in the studio thing...
Well, you can do it without me by all means. Feel free.
Okay, so next week's show will be a
Sunday probably.
Epic
I've got
show.
I've got to take somebody to the airport on Saturday. So
let's have a look at the diary here.
Yes, okay. Anyway, well, that's a conversation for after the show.
Yes.
We'll publish when we're doing that. But yes, so I will be missing next week if we go with the Friday. But it's all right. Other people can control it without me. It'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
Yeah,
don't panic.
It's fine. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's it. That's where we
that
bring the
is
show to a close.
Where we bring episode number 268 to a close of the Plain Talking UK
We've got
podcast.
To get better at wrapping up faster.
Take care, everyone. Whatever you're doing this weekend, have a safe and happy weekend, and enjoy yourselves, and hope to see everyone on Sunday.
Yes, absolutely. Make it if you can. It's going to be an amazing time. That's it, guys. Take care, everyone. We'll see everyone next week. Bye bye.